Hey, folks, it is Malcolm,
What's up, guys? How's everybody doing?
and we're coming from just off of our Chiron patron chat. We do these Sunday nights. We also have ones on weekday mornings, but we end up discussing some really interesting topics with the patrons. Shout out to David and Facer for stopping by. Facer has some great ideas that we're going to talk about in a little bit, and Facer is her her OG code name for violence dynamics. And if you want to know what that is, you're going to have to look it up because I can't give you the backstory. It's classified. Anyway, um, we were
Secret scroll
talking
stuff.
exactly. We were talking about the balance between institutional and peer rules. And institutional rules, meaning in school context, for example, this a school might have a zero tolerance policy around violence that lets a student continue to be bullied and prevents them, if they follow the rule, from being able to respond even with reasonable force compared to what they're encountering. And peer rules say that if they don't respond with some sort of force, often the bullying will persist or even escalate. And so we were trying to sort out how our students who are trying to protect themselves and be decent human beings can balance the institutional rules that exist to protect the institution and not necessarily to protect the individual, and peer rules that are usually the more seriously enforced side of it. For my context, coming from urban education, the difference is pretty easy for students to navigate because peer rules will kill you and school rules won't. So in some instances, and granted not for everybody, but in extreme circumstances, there are a lot more dangers associated with violating peer rules versus institutional rules. But unfortunately, the byproduct of that is a lot of times those same students who've been conditioned that way will end up in significant legal trouble for enforcing their boundaries on the peer rule side. And so it ends up being a very complicated calculus when we're talking about it. Paul actually had a great example of one of his students who had long hair. You want to share the example, Paul?
Short version, because it's not necessarily public view,
Fair.
is a student, and I've seen this paradigm many times over the years, where a student, the bullying becomes substantially more aggressive over time,
Hmm.
and it turns into from light verbal to more verbal to light physical to more physical.
Hmm.
And right in that parapet of light physical to more physical, I had a conversation with the mother and I said, maybe go have a conversation with the principal. She did. Principal said, no adult has seen it. There's nothing we can do.
Hmm.
Student enforced his boundaries physically. And the when the adult finally saw the result, the only thing that they saw was a bully with a bloody nose.
Hmm.
And the school, in a, I'm going to say, cover your ass mentality,
Yeah.
said, we're just going to punish everybody and suspend everybody. And the mom had to become a very vocal advocate for that individual, saying, no, you're not going to punish my son because he was the victim here and he defended
Hmm.
himself. And we have a societal model right now where it is better for the institution to cover itself
Hmm.
than it is to advocate for the individual. And that was we spent what was supposed to be an hour, but turned it very quickly into an hour and 45 minutes because that's what Chiron does.
Yeah.
Into how can we, as self-defense minded individuals, better address this to help the people that we influence
Yeah.
um, to be more safe and more secure in their everyday life.
And it was a fascinating discussion. One of the things we really got into was what's worth defending and how we can empower individuals in contexts where the institution might even punish them. And we came to, one of the foundational principles we were examining is the possibility of being punished for setting and maintaining those boundaries, and how we condition students, whether they be younger or older or really anyone, to continue to set and enforce those boundaries, regardless of what the potential consequences are. Because when we're doing the calculus, it may be a situation where enforcing those boundaries is just the less crappy choice. And that's really one of the central themes of understanding this stuff that we explored a lot more in depth. especially because shout out to Facer, she presented a model for what she called alpha through omega skills. Alpha skills being sort of the front end stuff that's used a lot more. And if you want to know more about it, feel free to join the Patreon page and join the discussions and find out so much more. But
Malcolm, I'm
it's,
very impressed with your crass commercialism. It's
oh,
very,
yes, I'm practicing. Um, but on a serious note, a lot of this stuff ends up being about weighing costs and benefits, and for students recognizing that teaching self-defense is about teaching individuals because their calculus is going to be completely different than somebody else's might be when weighing costs and benefits. And all too often, we end up with these one-size-fits-all, kill them all, let God sort them out solutions, when in reality, we need something much more nuanced because
Right.
depending on the context, it may be that the key is to make allies, or it may be that the key is to enforce ruthlessly, or it may be that the key is to lean on the institution. It really depends on what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And leveraging all of the skills and abilities and talents and potential of the student is really what's going to be important. Because if all I've got is a hammer, everything becomes a nail. So if I don't figure out how to leverage the institution, how am I really going to keep myself safer? So it was a really cool discussion. We had a great time. There were adult beverages, and funny jokes, and cats, and all kinds of things going on.
I look forward to the Sunday night chats all week, but this was a fun one. This was a
Yeah,
particularly fun one.
yeah, it was very cool. So one of the things we're going to try to do going forward is produce a lot more content for to get you guys interested in some of these discussions. Because number one, our primary focus is adding value. We just want you to be better able to train yourself and or your students to be safer. But number two is we're really trying to promote and create a community of people who are thinking through complicated problems. Because I mean, my take on self-defense and martial arts is all too often we end up with the hammer mentality for everything, right? Well, if I just hold the knife this way, all my problems will disappear. Well, I don't know if that's necessarily true. Sorry, but you still may have to know how to talk or uh, how to be a good witness or what have you. And then on top of it, really discussing what the larger implications are, because beyond just being safer, we want uh, people in general, but our students specifically, to have the best lives that they realistically can. So if we're thinking beyond just the context of making people safer, and we recognize that nobody walks away from this world alive, why not make those moments and those choices the best that we can make them for students beyond just being safe, but into being solid and purposeful and happy. And so all these romantic notions are what we discuss on Sunday nights. That it ends up being very, very cool. And what we do is we record it and we put it up on the Chiron patrons Facebook page, where we have a lot
Group.
of excuse me, Facebook group. Sorry, we have a lot of cool discussions. We post articles, do announcements, share ideas, have hilarious examinations of memes. My
True.
current favorite is the synthol bicep dude.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nick Grossman made that.
Oh, did he? Oh, that's
Somebody
cool.
in the Rory network made that.
Oh, that's cool. Well, shout out to Nick because that's very, very cool.
It's very cool. Yeah, I immediately turned around and shared it with my private group here locally in Boston. Yep.
Yeah, man. So we're gonna be doing all kinds of cool stuff more often. Keep an eye out for it. Join the Patreon page to get access to all of this stuff. We're trying to build a community of really thoughtful folk in an industry that isn't always thoughtful, and we want as many people as possible to be a part of it on a serious note.
Cool.
So that's it for Malcolm and Paul. We're gonna go back to our regular lives, and you guys be safe.
Cool. Night all. Have a great one.
All right, peace.